Hi, and welcome to the fourth and final episode in this short mini-series on how to train around injuries. So far we've looked at how to train around finger injuries, elbow injuries, and train around any shoulder issues that you've got. So today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different, and we're looking at knee injuries. This is something that a lot more climbers get than they might think. So we see a lot of knee injuries coming up with people that are particularly bouldering and those that are doing a lot of training. Like I've said in previous episodes, if you're ever unsure about what the knee injury is or you want more details, I'd always recommend seeing a medical professional. I'm not a doctor or a physiotherapist, and I'm just here to teach you how to climb and train around that injury, not how to rehab it. So if you do want more details or you're unsure whether this is appropriate for you, please go and speak to a professional. Also mentioned in every other episode so far is keeping track of pain, discomfort, and the reaction to the training. I can't overemphasize this enough, and it's really, really important that you start doing it from the beginning of the injury all the way to full rehab. So how do you do it? Scale of 1 to 10 for pain and discomfort during the training. So 0 being no pain, 10 being lots of pain. And then 1 to 10 on the reaction to the training. So if you wake up and in today's case your knee is really stiff, swollen or painful, then that'll give you a really high score of 10. And if you feel nothing in the morning on that injured area, it's a 1. By keeping track of that over time, you can see whether the pattern changes, whether it's improving or getting worse, and you can change things up depending on that. So for knee injuries, we're just going to cover the climbing elements of your training, because as you'll probably be quite aware, that finger strength training you can do on a fingerboard as normal, and any sort of conditioning we can just focus on the upper body, which I would say is the predominance of most climbers training anyway. So as long as you avoid that lower body training or be very careful with it and just focus on the one leg, the majority of the issues around a knee injury will come in the actual climbing itself. Now, the type of climbing you're going to be able to do is going to depend on the extent of the injury and the type of injury. But if we're generalizing, I would say that most climbing injuries around the knees are made worse when it's a pulling motion. So when your hamstrings are activated and you're pulling with your heels or your toes inwards. And that is something we see most commonly. So we've got to try and avoid that and make the most of our time without it. As you've probably seen in every other episode, this is kind of where slabs become our best friend, where doing small movements on vertical terrain and slabs is a really good idea. The difference with a knee issue is that really high rockovers and deep pushes is going to probably make it a little bit worse. So if you are going to do any slab climbing, focus on the footwork and do small movements, so small steps up, and you're going to be working the quads only, so you're not going to be pulling with the feet as much, but you're also not going to be trying to go into a really deep rockover position, because that's going to put the knee in a really acute angle, which can make it worse as well. So the other technique we're going to use is trying to climb with our feet under our hips and staying relatively square on. So even if you're not pulling with your feet, doing really deep twists, drop knees, or any sort of Egyptian style movements is going to put more stress through that knee than is necessarily needed to. So staying more square onto the wall is a really good start, but trying to keep your feet under your hips for the main movement is going to be a really good idea. If your foot's out to the side, it's going to be really easy to try and pull with it and pull your body across. We need to try and avoid doing that on that bad side. Instead, put your feet underneath your hips, and it means you're going to be pushing through the foothold rather than pulling into the foothold. My ideal terrain to get on during training with a knee injury is looking at slightly overhanging to vertical terrain. Once again, this stops you pulling with your legs, because the steeper the terrain, the more you're going to be using body tension to stay on the wall. And this is going to really start to make you feel like you're pulling with that knee, and it can make it a lot worse. So lastly, if you're trying to build up a load of energy system training and you're trying to get fitter during this time and you've got a really bad knee injury, a great way to move forward is to do foot off on the ground traversing. We've done this with people where they've got their legs in cast, they've broken their legs, and they're still able to make loads and loads of gains because they can do the fingerboarding, you can do your conditioning the same, but you can still get loads of fitness by just traversing backwards and forwards along the wall, keeping your feet on the ground. You can get the stimulus of loads of different holds. It'll be a bit more entertaining. And if you put some music or a podcast on, it's a great way to spend your time just trying to get that a little bit fitter and not lose any sort of gains that you've made. So that wraps up the mini series and covers the last episode, which is how to train around a knee injury. I've had quite a few knee injuries over the years from running and other climbing activities, so I know how hard this one is to resist and to be careful, but just take your time and it will get much, much better. Make sure you do the specific rehab that you need to on the injury as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this mini series. We've covered finger injuries, elbow injuries, shoulder injuries, and today's episode on the knee injuries. And hopefully it means that you can stay motivated despite any of these common causes to stop training and to have time off. You can always come out stronger and better in some way if you take the time to stay motivated and train. If you've enjoyed this series, it'd be great if you could subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out for our future episodes, which will be covering many other topics, because we're always trying to give you every bit of information that we have here at Lattice.